Welcome to Life Unrestricted.
This is your show if you're sick of living a life controlled by food and exercise rules, and if you're ready to learn how to accept yourself and enjoy the heck out of life. My gig is about body image, femininity, self-worth, and resilience. Come on, let's walk side by side as we slowly step out of restriction misery and unlock our true selves.
Your host, Merit Boxler, is a former national radio DJ, freelance journalist, speaker, and writer with a passion to make women feel good in their bodies. This is a show brought to you live from Switzerland.
Hi everybody, this is Merit. Am I going to say Grüezi now or Hoi zusammen? I'm still not sure. So this is episode 6 already, and before we start, I want to ask you something pretty trivial, seemingly, and it is, how's it going? Are you being kind to yourself? Honestly, are you being kind to yourself? I'm asking you because for 40 years, I've not ever considered asking myself this question. Honestly, I never did. In fact, had you asked me that, I probably would have looked at you with this sort of raised eyebrow thing, thinking, what? I got stuff to do. What kind of fluffy self-help question is that? And it's not just that I didn't do kindness in the way I treated myself. I would have even thought that I have to earn kindness, especially my own. Funny, isn't it, that with a mindset like that, it just never happens. We never do enough. We never achieve enough. We never work enough. I certainly never worked out enough. Essentially, we never feel good enough to treat ourselves with this kindness, this elusive kindness. Oh boy, and it takes a lot to teach an old dog new tricks, let me tell you. Even now that I'm familiar with the concept of treating oneself with kindness, I still totally fall back into my old belief system that basically thinks that this kindness thing is a ridiculously superfluous idea and overrated on top of that. But I make a conscious effort to catch myself because I know that the way I've treated myself throughout my life hadn't worked all that well, right? In my slightly distorted brain, it was common sense to have impossibly high expectations of myself, to go hard or go home, to have no needs. Certainly having no needs was crucial. Never asking for help. Who would ever ask for help? Heaven forbid. I'd be a burden to people. Oh no. And it was completely normal to think that while the idea of rest, the concept of resting, was somewhat self-explanatory, but not for me, Not for me, though. Because, I had to control my food and my weight. Same with exercise. And anything other than that would have meant, I'm letting myself go. Which would in turn certainly mean that I wouldn't be tolerated anymore. You understand? Speaking of white knuckles, right? So I don't know if any one of you can relate to that, but if you can, then this is just a kind reminder to treat yourself kindly. Because I know my brain is sort of Teflon for this message. So a little reminding here and there, like every hour or so, can't hurt. Right? Anyway, it's showtime. Quite literally so. Are you ready to meet the first drag queen who is actually trapped in a woman's body? Meet Kaila Prins, the woman with the most awesome drag makeup you could imagine. She's a body-positive burlesque and pole dancer, and with that, she is a performing woman, as she says herself. She is also a body-positive wellness and recovery coach, feminist writer and speaker, and a fellow podcasteen. Because I literally don't know where I would be had I not in my darkest days discovered her podcast, which is called Finding Our Hunger. And that's a show based on body positivity and health at every size to help disordered eaters and exercisers to start discovering who they really are. She talks about her 13-year battle with eating disorders, calorie counting, yo-yo dieting, and compulsive exercise. And she has the most amazing guests. So that was really the silver lining for me. So yes, that That's where I first learned that I'm not the only one with strange eating and exercise habits, that I was not the only one with this silent, shameful battle and with this gremlin voice in my head, going at me all day. And I learned that there was, in fact, the possibility to break free from those chains that diet culture has us in. I hadn't been aware of that, to be frank. I was too indoctrinated by all the messages I had heard all my life. And I'm talking 40 years. Kaila is one of the most precious few voices who bring the taboo topics of eating disorders, exercise addiction, and body image obsession into the open. And I think she's a real inspiration for thousands. So I'm delighted to have Kaila Prins with me today, believe me. Hi, Kaila.
Hello.
So nice to have you on.
I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. For those listeners who don't know you at all, which is a surprise, but it could happen, would you please introduce yourself and tell us about who you are and your life?
Sure. That's a long, complicated story, almost 30 years in the making. But so I'm Kaila Prins. You may also know me as the drag/burlesque dancer Dee Dee Queen. So I hate the term health coach. In fact, I think it's kind of bogus. So I try not to use it. I am a certified holistic health coach, but I like to think of myself as somebody who is working to give other people agency to, I hate the term empowerment as well, but basically empower people to feel less like they have to follow the rules of food and fitness and quote unquote health. It's hard because I've actually been really struggling with this lately to how do I define myself? I'm not like, I don't want to be a health coach forever. I want to be obsolete. I want people to feel empowered to make their own decisions about food, about fitness, about their body outside of the constraints of fat phobia, outside of the fears that people will judge them, outside of all of the rules that society has given to them. I stumbled upon intersectional feminism as a part of my eating disorder recovery, which we can talk a little bit about, I'm sure. And that has really helped me to place my body within the context of recovery outside of the commands of what we all assume an ideal body is, quote unquote, supposed to look like. Well, so to give you some context, so I grew up in Boca Raton, Florida, which is a very traditional sort of image conscious place. There's a lot of plastic surgery and it's South Florida. So it's beach culture and a lot of very rich women who are only rich because they're young and married to older men kind of thing. It's a culture that's very focused on what you look like. Whether that's like whether you look like you're rich or you look like you're thin. And I never really subscribed to any of that, but I think a lot of it infiltrated my thinking. And so when I was, my eating disorder, I wouldn't say was triggered by that, but my recovery was impeded by that mindset. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is, my eating disorder was triggered by a desire to become healthier, which had nothing to do with looks. In fact, it literally had nothing to do with looks. I was 13 years old and my legs kept breaking out in hives. That was it. I couldn't figure out why my legs were breaking out in hives. My mom suggested when I was a baby that I had a heightened reaction to soy. Okay, when I took an allergy test. And so I said, well, I don't eat soy. I eat chocolate chip cookie dough and I eat macaroni and cheese out of the box. I'm not a health food person, right? But then I learned how to read labels. And this was long before labeling was a big deal,
as it is nowadays.
This would have been, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, in America, I don't know if you saw the FDA is like making the labels like calories are giant and like the amount of sugar you're eating is it didn't used to work like that. But and people never really talked about reading labels. But I was one of those people who learned how because I had to, quote unquote, for my health. And what happened is I started learning about what being healthy was, and like, oh, well, if there's hydrolyzed soy protein in something, it's not healthy because it's processed food. So I not only cut out soy, I cut out all processed food. And I dropped a ton of weight really fast. At the same time, my mom got me a gym membership, and I learned how to work out. I'm a type A perfectionist. I like to win. I like to be the best. So that summer, I started biking to the gym and then working out and biking home, right? And if I'm going to eat clean, right? It wasn't called eating clean back then, but if I'm going to eat clean, I'm going to be the cleanest. And my friends used to make fun of me at like sleepover parties when I couldn't eat anything. And I have to ask, like, did they put soy in this pizza? Like and you know, what happened is as I started getting thinner though, a strange shift happened because there was a family member who was very image conscious, and she's no longer part of our family, but at the time she hated me. Like, it was pretty obvious that there was a dislike for me, and it made like family dinners really uncomfortable. And I just remember her telling me that I looked good for the first time. And it was when I was below like 100 pounds. So, you know, it was then that things in my brain started to shift. So again, it shifted from this is about like literally just about protecting my health to getting validation, to the societal part, right? Which now contributed to my continuing. And as I continued and dropped weight and, you know, really got to a place where I was underfed and overexercised, my brain basically stopped functioning. And so then it was like, I have to keep going, right? At that point, I've lost the ability to make good decisions because my brain is literally not being fed, you know? And I've always suffered from depression and anxiety my entire life. So and obsessive compulsive tendencies. So those all, of course, play in. Most of those things are comorbid with eating disorders. And, you know, the first time that I recovered, it was easier, I guess, because I was underfed for a short period of time. It turns out, by the way, I'm not allergic to soy. I'm allergic to hazelnuts, which were in my shampoo.
Who knew?
Who knew, right? I stopped using the shampoo and then stopped getting hives. Funny how that happens. You know, but I mean, that summer, I saw what happens when you get thin. I got my very first boyfriend. I had a lead in Greece. I was, you know, one of the cool kids. I was throwing a 4th of July party that everyone was coming to. You know, my family thought that I looked good. Then other people started commenting about how good I was. So I could see why there was no reason to recover.
Yes, of
right?
course. Suddenly you belong to the cool kids club, as it happens to everybody.
Exactly. And so again, you know, so my eating disorder was not created by the patriarchy, but it was fueled and recovery was impeded by. And when I say the patriarchy, this isn't like anti-men. The patriarchy it affects all of us, right? It sounds like such a, you know, blanket, you know, overused feminist term. And if you prefer kyriarchy, you can use that as well. The kyriarchy is kind of like all of the overarching structures, which include the patriarchy that keep people oppressed. But essentially, the idea that my body is only good when it is thin, when I am working for health, when I am proving that the way that I eat and the way that I exercise is good, right? Quote unquote good. It's clean, it's pure, and I'm working to make sure that my body is attractive for other people. That is an issue. That's a huge issue. And that's an issue also affecting men who are dealing with muscle dysmorphia right now, and men who are becoming anorexic even as they pursue.
I know some of them.
Yeah. So the first time, as I said, it was fairly easy. No one ever diagnosed me. This is the fun part, right? People diagnosed me as good, but no one ever diagnosed me as an eating disorder, despite the fact that I was shopping in the little boys section of Target in the ninth grade, rather. You know,
I can totally relate to that. No one ever said anything unless I got really thin.
And even then, they don't know what to say because you're still doing the right thing, right? Right thing in quotes. But so I had knee surgery. I had a bone tumor. I had a knee surgery, and it scared me because for some reason I thought I was going to die. It was benign. But that like kind of fueled me to be like, maybe I should eat again. Like, I don't want to die. I was so excited to be alive when I woke up that I ate chocolate for the first time in a year,
Great.
That sort of thing. And what happened is as soon as I healed, instead of going to physical therapy, I joined the cross country team.
Oh, I know that well as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I went from being the second slowest girl to the second fastest girl.
Which you loved.
Of course. And I was running with the boys, and I became captain, and I was the most valuable player in my very first year. And the problem is because I never rehabbed my knee, I stress fractured my ankle right before districts the first year, stress fractured my ankle right before regionals the second year, finally ran in regionals the third year. But I was, by that point, running twice a day. And I was eating all of the food, like binge eating, I was doing like 4 helpings of spaghetti, and then I'd also have M&Ms, and then I'd go for my second run for the day, so I was managing my weight through exercise bulimia at that point. And exercise bulimia is not a well-known thing. Essentially, I am purging or compensating for my calories by exercising. So I was at a quote unquote normal weight, which was still underweight, but again, nobody said anything because if you're a runner, you're supposed to carbo load. If you're a runner, you're supposed to be wanting to get faster, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And sure, you injure yourself, you're a runner, right? Just keep going. So did that, went to college, completely just stopped. And then I ended up gaining a bunch of weight because I was so focused on my studies. And then I freaked out when I went home. So I started doing isogenics cleanses. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like Beachbody, basically. Mm-hmm. It's one of those, what they do is like a coach will sell you shakes and cleanse liquids and coach you through it, and you pay them, and then they make you a coach, and then you get other people under you. It's a pyramid scheme, basically.
Oh, no. This is going to come to Europe as well, since we adopt the silliest things. Mm-hmm. Oh, God. Oh, no. I see it coming. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's a great way, it's a quote unquote great way for people to make money and work from home and live the life of their dreams, right? But it's also a great way to get the body you love while also being absolutely miserable. I was working 2 jobs that summer, and I couldn't even stay awake because I was eating 6 almonds, an apple, and 2 cleanse liquids a day. It was awful.
Oh,
it was awful. But I gained weight.
How's that possible?
Well, welcome to the world of dieting when your body is free. I mean, it was all water weight at that point. But the point is, you start to screw up your metabolism after years of like over exercising, then binge eating, then like crash dieting, right? Mm-hmm. But again, my life kind of fell apart. I had to leave my college a year early, and I switched to another college. I was miserable. Completely relapsed with anorexia, but didn't eat at all this time and was very sick. And again, the validation rolled in. And actually at one point, to give you an example of that validation, this guy I was kind of hooking up with at the beginning of my college experience, a friend of ours, mutual friend, was like, you guys will like each other. And I was like, I don't really like him, but I guess somebody needs to like me. Mm-hmm. We hooked up for a little bit at the beginning of college. And then about 6 months later, he showed up at my house drunk, basically as a booty call, even though I had not wanted him there. And I was completely underweight at that point, depressed, suicidally so. I was on depression medication at that point and seeing a therapist. And, I completely relapsed with anorexia so bad. And he basically was like, oh, you're much hotter now.
Oh,
so again, reason, right? Quote unquote, no reason to recover when the people who can validate you are telling you that you look better when you are literally on death's door.
Yes, of course.
So, again, the recovery period was long and protracted. I met another guy who introduced me to the gym, and he got me hooked on bodybuilding culture. This is actually when things took a turn for the worse. Okay, so here I was. I'm now like, I don't know, 9 years into this process, and I meet this guy who I'm basically, after a week, convinced we're going to get married, as is he. We moved in together after a month. And, completely head over heels in love. He is very dominant and took advantage of me on multiple occasions, but I didn't realize that was what that was until now. But he showed me a picture of his favorite fitness model before he went back to school. And then I decided that because we both went back to school for graduate school at the same time in different states, and I decided that by November, when I saw him for Thanksgiving, I was going to look like her.
Of course you would.
I discovered all of the clean eating stuff, bodybuilding.com and Oxygen magazine and whatever, and I started bodybuilding. And when I didn't look like her in November, I broke up with him because I was afraid that he was going to be disgusted with me.
Oh my God. So yeah, as it is, things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Oh yeah.
Sneakily so though.
Oh yeah. And what's crazy is that I broke up with him, but I committed to the gym even more hardcore. Yeah. And so here's the thing. And this is something that I always tell people who come to me, anorexia is when, obviously you're not eating and whatever. That's the classical definition of it. I was not diagnosed with it because I didn't lose my period the first 9 years or so of this horrible cycle. But when I was finally diagnosed with anorexia, I was eating 6 times a day. I was following the bodybuilding.com Oxygen magazine style diet, which was a fitness competitor's diet.
Do you think they kind of set people up for developing an eating disorder?
Oh, God, yeah. The thing is, because all of the quote unquote science that we're following is meant to get your body down to a certain body type, sure. But that's not necessarily a healthy body type. Even though that's what our health magazines use as a picture of health. So we're completely, here in the States, we talk a lot about media literacy. I mean, we don't talk enough about media literacy, but we do talk about it. And this is one of the things that I am most passionate about. I give talks on this. I've spoken at colleges and even in elementary schools about media literacy and understanding how to decode the pictures we see, because these pictures do have 1,000 words in them, right? Yeah. And they do tell us something, and they help code the way that we view our bodies within the context of the world.
So when you saw the bodybuilding stuff, is that what you're referring to? Yeah. Give a few examples. That'd be great.
Yeah. So I saw that as healthy, right? Because those are literally the pictures of health that we see. So it is the picture of health. So if I look like that, I can't be unhealthy, right? It's a picture of what we want health to be, but it is not the picture of health. And so I actually recently had a young girl connect with me, and she sent me an email, and she basically said, I don't understand how I can be sick. And what she did is she sent me a picture of herself, and she put it next to screenshots from when she Googled the words healthy skinny.
Oh, yes.
So because those, so if you type in healthy skinny on Google, you'll see images. You don't get
healthy skinny.
Right. You just get skinny. But somebody has tagged that photo as healthy. And the thing is, because our perception of what health is so skewed, when she sees this, she says, oh, this is what I'm supposed to look like if I'm healthy. So if she then looks like that and a doctor says, no, that is completely unhealthy and you're dying, there's cognitive dissonance, right? The inability for your beliefs and expectations of reality to match up with the actual reality. And what that does is it creates this huge conflict that you're unable to resolve in your brain. And it sets you up for failure because, who are you going to believe? This doctor who's trying to get you to stop being validated, right? This doctor who is saying that being skinny isn't good enough for you, right? You're not good enough to be skinny. You're not. That's what you hear, right? And then, because fat phobia is such a very acute thing where people are so deathly afraid of being fat for a good reason, society oppresses people who are, right? So you're not wrong for being afraid of being fat in the context of wanting society to accept you. And a doctor saying, I'm going to take away the ways you're validated. What would you do in that situation? Well, of course, you're going to go, well, I'm going to run away from this doctor. I am going to keep Googling and doing those behaviors. So again, the expectations of society impede recovery.
Or sometimes even the doctors tell you to lose weight, or you just go home and think, I'm not doing this right because I should by now feel happy and healthy and desired. But somehow I seem to screw things up, so I have to try harder. That's what happened for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it is, so what happens is we're told when you're thin, you're going to be happy. But then when you get there and you're not happy, you're like, well, I'm not thin enough yet.
Exactly.
Right? So it's really less about being thin and more about trying to find that place of ease. But unfortunately, we only know thin as a way to find that place of ease, right? Because, happiness is, I kind of think happiness is BS. Am I allowed to curse? I don't want to say anything bad. Yeah. Happiness is bullshit. It is. And what I mean by that is this state of bliss, that's not human nature. That's not the human experience. Okay, let me tell you this. I just said this to my boyfriend this morning. I'm like, life is rough. I'm injured as hell. Everything is in pain. The world is falling apart. Britain just voted to leave the EU. Trump might win in this country and I have nowhere to go.
It's insane.
You know what I mean? The world is falling apart at the seams, but you know what? We woke up together in a sunbeam for the first time. You know what I mean? So I'm happy about that, even in the context of the world. Literally last night while walking my dog, I was crying listening to the politics podcasts. Okay. So happiness isn't this eternal state where everything goes well. Happiness is a feeling that you get when you can feel gratitude for something. It's not something that you earn, right? You can create situations in which you can be happy, but at no point are you guaranteed for life to be perfect, right? And unfortunately, it's really hard to market that to people. So what's much easier to make people click and buy something? You'll be happy forever. We're going to fix you. Or well, life's not going to be perfect, but you might be able to cope better. Which one would you buy?
Yeah, of course. And you see the models on the runway and they get validation and perhaps you experience the same being validated when you lose weight. So of course I never questioned anything. I made it about me being wrong. And it didn't even occur to me that there's happiness in a body that is not, I don't know, according to society standards.
Yeah. And so this is the thing that I try to teach the most. And this is what I really want people to understand. The only way that you will ever be able to exist in your body in even a tiny state of happiness at all, right, is when you say, I don't care about what society thinks. And that is the hardest thing that you will ever do. I mean, it makes me so sad when I belong to a bunch of body image groups and I see so many people struggling and people reach out to me as a coach, and I get emails from people all the time and it's just I see the struggle and the struggle is I want to be better. I want to stop obsessing. I want to be able to take a break from exercise. But if I do,
gain weight.
Yeah. And then I say, so what if you gain weight? And it's I don't know, but it's the worst thing that could happen,
it must
right?
Not ever happen. Of course.
And and then people get upset because, so I'm still straight sized, right? I didn't get fat when I recovered. I gained a lot of weight, and I'm on a much larger end of the scale for for what my BMI is quote unquote supposed to be, right? But I'm still straight size, and people are like, "Well, I'm comparing my body to yours because, well, you stopped, so you must be able to, you can say it because you didn't get fat." And it's whoa, you're still comparing your body again. Yeah. You're still placing value on my relative thinness. You're still if you place value on this.
Yeah, but have some compassion for it. I mean, it happens to me as well. I mean, whenever I see someone, I still fall into that jealousy mindset, oh, I want to look like her, or, oh, it's not fair. I wonder how fat I would get if I gave up all of my obsessive habits or, something like that. So I understand because this fear is obviously massive.
Oh,
otherwise we wouldn't, restrict our lives down to literally nothing in order to be thin.
Yeah, no, and I don't want it to come off sounding like I'm angry and not compassionate. I'm fired up about it because I want people to be. I just want to shake everyone and be like, it's okay. It's okay to be in a you-sized body. It's okay.
How beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. And I want the comparisons to stop, because when we continue to compare, that's what generates so much of this angst, right? So how do you stop? I mean, I'll give you my example, and then we can kind of extrapolate out from there. So I think the biggest shift for me really started when there's a couple of things. So the first thing that happened is I started gaining weight in 2013. I stopped restricting pretty much. I let go of most of my paleo. I was following a very strict diet, and I was constantly trying to heal myself by doing sugar detoxes and autoimmune paleo and stuff. And eventually I just said, no more, so I started kind of shifting away from that in 2013. And by 2014, I was kind of over it. I had gained a ton of weight. I had to shift my whole closet. I got rid of the old clothes, and I decided, I made the decision that I was going to approach this with curiosity and not fear. And so when I approached myself in the mirror, and looked at my body as it changed, instead of being like, oh my God, things are going wrong, I would just smile at myself and go, interesting. It's interesting that this is what my body is doing right now. It's interesting that this is what my body wants. And I know that sounds weird, but I committed to doing this because I wanted to be better. I wanted to stop hurting. I started leaving myself Post-it notes of you're beautiful on the mirrors, just to remind myself that if I did approach the mirror feeling upset, then I would take a breath and read it and just be reminded that this was interesting. I stopped untagging myself on Facebook pictures, and I started looking at them, and I said, this is what I look like, and not going, this is what I look like.
What made you capable of all that all of a sudden, coming from such a disordered background? I would have expected I would think I would fall back, say, screw this, I'm going to restrict again or whatever. And what made you capable of not doing it this time around?
I think something fundamentally shifted when I actually got really lucky. I got a job in retail, as I mentioned, that kind of changed my life. Doing that job, I was focused on other people and helping to learn how to delight them, to find out what was interesting to them for the first time in my life, really, where I am meeting hundreds of people every single day and helping them find something delightful in every experience. I became a sales expert, and I committed to learning as much as I could about computers and technology and how to apply it to business. And I started working with a business team, and I had a purpose. And I had friends, because all of those people that I worked with were wonderful. And we would go out and sing karaoke every Monday night. And I couldn't, freak out about being in bed early because karaoke didn't start till 9:00, right? So if I missed the gym on Tuesday morning, it was okay.
And so it was connection that helped you, really.
Yeah, it was relationships and recognizing that there's more to me that is valuable, that I can give to other people than just my body. Because frankly, nobody asked me questions about my body underneath my baggy retail clothes, right? But people asked me questions about computers and how they could use them to make their lives better. And I loved that job. I really did. But I had chronically injured myself. So that was the next part, right? So I did a wellness challenge where the company sponsored this thing where we all got Nike Plus on our phones, and we were supposed to log the most miles run every single day. And, the team, the store with the most miles run would win. And, it was just a brief wellness challenge. And I tweaked my ankle while I was about 2 miles into a 4-mile run. And it wasn't like I rolled the ankle. I didn't sprain it. There was no indication that there was anything wrong. But other than that, like brief, like, that feels funky. And I ran the rest of the 2 miles. And then I went home. And then I did it again the next day. And the next day. And the next day. And every day it hurt a little bit more until I had to go on disability and couldn't even go to my job because it was too painful. And doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had MRIs, I had bone scans, I had, physical therapy, and nothing got better because I kept exercising on it because I'm an exercise addict. And eventually got to the point where when I moved across the country, I couldn't do my job, and I couldn't exercise,
You were forced to stop.
I was. And I still did because I'm dumb.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. And I say dumb, and obviously that's not meant to when you have an addiction and you don't know how to manage it, it's not dumb necessarily so much as literally just you're on your own and you're an addict and you're trying to figure out how to manage it. Mm-hmm. So I would still exercise on it, but it hurt. And eventually I had to take a break when I had surgery. And the surgery went wrong. And I had to take another even longer break. And then again, I was hit by a car a year later. And had to have another ankle surgery.
What?
Yeah, that was pretty awful. I actually broke the other leg, and so we don't know whether it was because I got hit by the car or because I was overcompensating, but the tendon tore again, and I had to have another surgery. So I've had a lot of forced breaks.
As if something was trying to tell you, stop.
Exactly. And you know what? 2013, as I mentioned, when I started gaining weight, was when I got hit by the car, I realized like I could die tomorrow. And what will I have left for the world? It was the moment when I had to make that decision. Like, I am going to recover and this is it, because if I die tomorrow and all I had was, she was skinny or she was fit, like what a contribution to the world that is,
Yeah.
So I struggled, this wasn't just like, this was easeful the whole way through. Of course I fought against it the whole way because it's all I've done for the past 10 years, right? Yes. I guess 13 at this point, maybe 14 now. Mm-hmm. And so then I started dating again. And I ended up going on a date with a guy who, his best friend is a burlesque dancer. And he took me to my very first burlesque show. And it blew my mind because here were people of all different colors, all different shapes, all different sizes, getting on stage, being sexy the way that they feel the sexiest, getting screams and hoots and hollers and cheers and all that validation that I thought only thin people get, right? And it was breathtaking to be there. I was Googling burlesque classes before I even left.
Wow.
And unfortunately there were no burlesque classes in the South Bay where I live, but there was a pole dance studio. So I went to that and I started pole dancing. And again, I was in a place where I could be in my body. I could be connected with my sexuality, with myself as a being with hips and with breasts, which were things I always tried to erase with my anorexia, orthorexia, exercise addiction, etc. Here I was in this safe place where I could be any size and still be strong, right? I could be and I didn't have to change my body in order to do all of these incredible things. And then from there, I started dating my current boyfriend, who I'm now living with, which is amazing. But he introduced me to one of his best friends, who's a burlesque dancer, who introduced me to the burlesque scene here. And so I've been dancing since August of last year. I go on stage, and no matter what you look like, people cheer for you. People want you to take your clothes off. People are excited about the skills that you bring or the story that you tell. And they're super excited to see your pasties. You can have big boobs or small or none, right? You can tell a haunting tale, or you can just be silly and sexy and whatever. And it is amazing because it doesn't really matter what your ability is. There are disabled people who do burlesque and do it really well. There are fat people, there are thin people, and we all get on stage together and don't compare and don't compete because we are just there to tell our story and share ourselves in a way that brings us the most joy.
What would be your advice for people who want to tackle their internalized fat phobia if they realize that there is such a thing?
Yeah, so it's rough because, you know, every person is going to do this on their own time, but I would recommend surrounding yourself by fat bodies. Surround yourself, right? And not just like in name, right? Like, oh, well, I'm body positive, so, you know, I believe fat people are good, just not me, just not me, just not me, please not me, right? Understanding that fatness has zero, literally, like it's a neutral thing. Thinness as well is a neutral thing, okay? And repeating it to yourself if you need to, right? When those thoughts come up, then you need to combat those thoughts, because the thing is, you may have conditioned your unconscious to think a certain way, so you may need to bring your conscious mind into it, right? If you have that thought where you're comparing, ask why.
The deepest fear is fear of rejection. And as you said, this is a real fear because it is happening. So
yeah,
how do we get over that? It's a fact.
So stop hanging out with assholes.
Great point.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this is a point that I don't want to be accepted by the bodybuilding community anymore. A lot of the people in the bodybuilding community, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to upset a lot of people. They're assholes. They're assholes because they think that you're supposed to look a certain way, and if you don't, you're not good enough. Well, you know what? Screw you. I don't care. So don't accept me. I literally have zero patience for them, and I don't want to be accepted by them. I have an amazing community of people who love me and don't need my body to change. So see ya.
Yeah. And how do we detach weight ideas from health ideas?
Ooh, well, that is a whole thing. So getting acquainted with health at every size is really important, and you may need to experience it for yourself. So you may you don't believe me right now, like listener out there, you may not believe that this is actually possible, that this is true, that this is good, right? But just trust me and then go out and experience it. So for example, I gained a very large amount of weight in it was a fair amount of time, but I definitely was afraid throughout that process that maybe my health would be affected. I started seeing a functional medicine doctor at the beginning of it. And what was interesting is that as we were working together and I did gain weight, my health was improving the whole time. Mm-hmm. And in fact, when I gained the weight that my body needed, and then I went on thyroid medication, I got my period back and all of my blood levels of everything kind of evened out. I have had a regular period for the first time in years and years and years. And it's a constant like cognitive battle. Like maybe I should try to get healthier. And then I look at my blood and go, oh, no, it's good. We're healthy already, Yeah. So that's when the belief comes in. But if I hadn't trusted that this is going to get better and that this is possible and that health at every size is real, and and just in case listeners don't know, health at every size, it is about recognizing that health can exist when you are fat and when you are thin and when you are somewhere in between, but you have to be at a weight that your body is settled at, right? You're not fighting your body. Health at every size is recognizing that you can nourish yourself, that you can partake in movement that, because, exercise addiction aside, if you're an exercise addict or an exercise bulimic, that is a different issue and you do need to take a break, but you should be able to move, on a fairly regular basis. You should be able to move and partake in exercise, in a way that feeds you without depleting you, right? Mm-hmm. You should be able to eat healthily without it being a diet. I just recently released a video of like health behaviors versus weight loss behaviors. And, you can eat healthy without it being a diet. You can eat healthy without it being eat clean, right? Like
yeah, but
you
going
can
to
nourish yourself.
It'd be good if you went into some detail about this, because people, they always pull the health card. Yeah, I'm not, I'm just doing this for my health. And even if I tell them, imagine if you were the last person on the planet, would you still want to lose weight, or would you still eat that obsessively? And then they sort of, but we're not. So it's, I don't even know how to, lead this discussion.
Isabel Fox and Duke actually just published an article. Essentially, she said something along the lines of, let's see. Okay, here it is. The grander and more critical problem with the health argument is that needing to lose weight for health reasons still doesn't magically make diets work. Diets almost always fail long-term, irrespective of your reasons for going on one. And so what I see people doing is they say that, oh, well, I'm doing this for my health. But what they're really saying is I'm doing this for my weight loss. If you were to do something for your health, you might cook a dinner at home, right? Maybe, throw some meat and veggies on the skillet and a couple of carbs and eat that, right? If you were doing it for your weight loss, you would make dry chicken breast and, only green veggies and not season it because, God forbid, and it's a perfect portion and you know exactly how many calories it is and how it fits into your macros. That's doing it for your weight loss. Doing it for your health is eating food. Doing it for your weight loss is eating calories and macros, right? Doing it for your health is when you are, you're able to not think about it. You can do it and still be healthy and not have to document it. So you're not using a calorie counter, a food log, an exercise log. You're just literally I know how to make good decisions and I don't need someone to tell me how to do it, right? When you're doing it for your weight loss, it's well, I bought this plan. I'm following these recommendations. I'm obsessing about how it's going to work. What if I don't lose enough weight? Maybe I have to be more restrictive, etc. So understanding that health actually shouldn't take any brain power. You already know what's healthy and what's not. You read all the articles. You've downloaded every press release that the journalists put out about every single study, and you can chart at what point you stopped eating eggs and then started eating eggs and then stopped eating eggs and then started eating eggs because fat was good and bad and good and bad, right? You already know. So if you already know these things, you can just put it aside and be like, yeah, I know fruits and veggies are good for me. Great, eat some of those.
And when has a plate of spaghetti turned into the enemy? I mean, clearly the world is going crazy. We used to, it was just normal. And now everything is, there's so much nutritional advice and rules with exercise, and everybody has to go at it harder and more is better and thinner is better, that it's really hard to keep your sanity in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so I just want to encourage people when they find themselves feeling oh, but I'm doing it for my health, to ask, if I didn't lose weight, would I be doing this? Because honestly, the people who do things like isogenics, which is what I talked about earlier, that shake cleanse thing, people who do Beachbody and all of those, they're very quick to tell you, but this is about my health. Or even Weight Watchers. They're quick to tell you, I'm doing this because I care about myself, because it's about my health. But if you were to do that and not lose weight, I guarantee you you'd stop doing that thing. I also guarantee that your health would probably not improve. So what I would recommend is learn how to eat meals, learn how to turn off the nutrition stuff. Get rid of it. When I got rid of all that stuff, my brain opened up and I had so much more time to worry about other things. And suddenly I was less afraid of the world. Because I didn't know the minutia of how, A1C was being affected when I breathed near Brussels sprouts or something. You know what I mean? I want to know when something's toxic, but everything is not toxic. And if you're following the food babes of the world, everything will seem toxic to you. And you don't, if you live your life in fear, of course you're going to be stressed all the time. Of course you're going to be obsessing all the time. I know how to eat healthily, so I do it. I also eat cookies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to swim counterculture because people are increasingly obsessive, and, it's hard to go against all that when everybody seems to sort of jump on the wagon. Of
course. But you know what? At some point, it gets exhausting. to follow.
It
that.
does. Yes.
You know, and at some point it stops serving you. And so if you can say, this isn't serving me anymore and I don't want it, then go find the other counterculture people. I am not hanging out with assholes anymore. So you have to just reject it. You have to find the people who are going to say, but I love you as you are. And I guarantee you that the number one asshole in your life is you. I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You know?
It is.
Because
it's inside my head.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And trust me, the asshole lives in my head too. And the more that I surround myself with people who are like, you know, your asshole is talking to you again, right? You know, when I first started dating my boyfriend, you know, I was worried about like sex with the lights on and showing my body. And he's like, are you kidding? Like as I gained weight, my boobs got bigger, and he's like, "This is the best thing ever," you know.
Great guy.
For me,
clearly
you know,
a keeper.
the asshole in my head. Yeah. Oh, clearly. Like I'm so excited, but like, you know, the asshole in my head is like, your boobs are too big. You're starting to get fat. You know, these are bad things. And he's like, nope. Good. I'm glad that you're soft. You know what I mean?
Oh, that helps.
Like, and so if you get away from the assholes and you surround yourself with people who want to love you for you, then the only way the asshole in your head survives is if you continue striving to be accepted by the people who aren't ever going to accept you.
Yeah. Show some love to yourself, most of all, right?
Yeah.
I want to go into the fitness thing once again, because I think in our society, our whole idea of fitness is turning somewhat toxic, I think. And certainly in my head, exercise, I don't know who or what, but along the way, exercise stopped being fun for me. And it's just a chore that I have to do. And unless I do it, I'm not okay, because something in my head tells me, the asshole in my head tells me that I screwed up and that I can't eat, and that, I have to suffer for something and earn my food and whatever. And it's somehow hitched to the idea that it's a calorie burning sort of thing. Yeah. How do we detach from that idea and, reclaim the fun we have to move our bodies?
Well, especially with exercise addiction, the same way that if you were addicted to alcohol, I'd tell you to stop. I know.
I don't want to hear it.
Of course. Neither do alcoholics.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna be uncomfortable. Like I totally get, like, trust me, I'm so uncomfortable. I haven't worked out in 2 weeks. And I can feel my body, and I'm like, ugh, what is happening? It's a body and it hasn't moved. Right. Yeah.
And how do you not start to then restrict your calories because you think, oh, I've not worked out? Because somehow in our head, we make it about that.
Well, I've had a long period of recovery where at this point it's like, I'm not going to lose weight. It's not my job, but when I first started, it was really rough. I think it's just a matter of doing it. And again, not believing me that it's okay and trusting me that it's okay anyway, and just doing it. Because the thing is, like, there's no magic formula to give you. Like, everyone wants, like, oh, the 30 days to da-da-da-da, the 21 days to da-da-da-da. You can't, really how this works is you do it. You do it, and you do it safely. So you have a therapist or you have a support team around you, but you sit with that discomfort. You sit with it and you feel it and you experience it and you hate it and you do all the things you don't want to do, but you do it, right? Because if you don't do it, it's like you're not going to get better. Like, that's just it. There's nothing anyone can sell you. There's nothing that anyone can tell you to do. You just have to sit with it. And then after a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, it depends on where you're at in your own recovery, it stops meaning so much, And when you go back to fitness, you find something that is fun. You find something that isn't about changing your body. This is why I hate bodybuilding and gym culture in general. I haven't set foot in a gym in like 2 years. And the only time I was in a gym in the last 2 years was so I could go use their pool. You know, I'm not Michael Phelps, obviously, right? Like I just would go and do a couple laps for like half an hour and then I'd go take a shower and go to work, right? And then I found pole dance, which for me was not about fitness and restriction. And because I just don't have the patience for it anymore. The losing weight, because when you go to gyms, right, they give you a periodized workout. That's like today is leg day, tomorrow's arm day. We're doing triceps, biceps because you're working toward a bodily goal. Whereas like when I teach a burlesque dance class, so I just started teaching classes, and we sweat like crazy during our last class. Oh my God. I just choreographed a number to Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head. And we're doing a chair dance where, we're kicking and we're, moving around and we were shimmying and everything. And by the end of the class, we were sweating, but I don't think anyone's going to when you leave the class today, you will have worked on your calves, you will have worked on your triceps, and you'll have worked on your hamstrings, right? Like that's not the case. So there's no outcome other than, did you guys have fun today? Congratulations, you took your clothes off, and you did it at whatever size you're at. And there's no expectation that you're going to change your body. And I taught a burlesque class over Skype. We did a party, right? And everybody was sweating by the end of it.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And that's the kind of fitness that I want to do, where there is no expectation and no periodized workout where I have to look a certain way as a result, right? You don't have to compete. You don't have to perform. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to weightlift. You don't have to change your body. Just go move. Get a dog, go for a walk.
So there's no way around facing that fat shame, that internalized fat shame. Because if we don't, then we fall back into restriction on the food side of things.
Yeah. And so
that's where people oscillate. Usually either you make them stop exercising and then they stop eating, or you make them eat and then they start exercising like crazy.
Exactly. And so we have to face fat phobia. And, the thing is, I'm working as an advocate, and hopefully someday I'm working right now on being able to shift my career so that I can help actually legislate things. But I want to see a world where fatness is not oppressed. And so, all of what I'm saying is great on the individual level, but on a societal level, we still have some serious issues. On a societal level, yes, it is scary to be fat. On a societal level, yes, if you do get fat, you will be discriminated against. There will be people who get mad at you on the airplane. There will be doctors who tell you to lose weight. There will be employers who don't hire you. And I 100% recognize that. However, and I say this, I struggle with this because when I'm speaking to people who are in restrictive eating disorders, I have to say there's a pretty good chance you're not going to get fat. But I also don't want to say that you won't, because A, that's lying to you, because I don't know. I don't know what's up with your body, right? But also that is still, it's still oppressing fat people by saying that if you do get fat, it's a bad thing. And I acknowledge that, right? So what we can do instead is advocate for a society where the assholes don't win, right?
What comes to mind when you say all that is actually Oprah, because she said there was a thin person somehow trapped in a fat person's body.
Oh,
and
that made me so
when
sad.
she said that, I was like, frankly, I think it might be the other way around, because for me, the fear is that inside of me, there's a much bigger person that is suppressed by my efforts of, keeping my weight down. Yeah. So I would argue that maybe that's the fear for a lot of people. It's not that, I have to excavate the thin person, but I must not let the heavier person out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the mindset shift. That is 100% the mindset set shift. Because here's the deal. Oprah is one of the most powerful women in America. She can do anything she wants. And if there is a thin woman inside of her that can do more, I don't think so. You know what I mean? There's nothing in there other than the self she already is, right? Thinness doesn't get her any more accolades or money or, or love because she's already loved.
Yeah, and it's making me sad because I see that she's been dieting all her life and she's in a different body than I am. But I recognize myself in her. And no matter how spiritual she's become and how beautiful of a voice she has for this world, why is she still trapped? My first reaction was like, wow, she's not credible anymore. But then I was like, wow, she's probably still in the mindset of my body's not good enough. So if that happens to Oprah, then I might as well stop right now because if no success whatsoever and no love and no spirituality will, make this stop, then I might as well stop it now.
Yeah. But, and that's the thing. It's like, it's literally recognizing that. It's literally, that's where it starts, is going, you know what? If dieting to get thinner doesn't make it better, then maybe I should just make it better now in this body right now. And that's what I'm working on with the burlesque thing. I am living my best life that I can live at this moment in the body that I have, with its ability, with its size, with, all of whatever I have. And I'm not afraid that if it changes, I will lose these things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, it was also only recently, in the past year or 2 years after I discovered your podcast and Summer Inninen's podcast. So in the past 2 years, there's a process has been going on. And only then have I realized, how much bandwidth it has taken up in my life, that all I want to do is like keep my body somewhat acceptable, and it takes up all my time and all my thinking and all my everything, and it keeps me isolated. And I didn't even realize it because I was obviously somewhat unconsciously thinking that, well, once I master this thing, then not ever questioning it or, turning the whole thing around and like, what do you mean? I can be happy now?
Yeah.
Like that? Then what are the last 22 years about?
So if you recognize that the bandwidth has already been taken up in the past and you're mad about that, then that should help you. And obviously, of course, the fear is real and it's valid and it's okay to feel it. But at some point you have to say, then I'm going to go and create my life and see what happens. We can't live in fear. At some point, we have to go out and free up that bandwidth and then fill the bandwidth with something else that validates us, right? And you know what? You have the conversations with people when they start to bring up asshole topics of interest, right? Maybe not angry conversations unless that's where you're at, But sometimes, being able to say, I'm not really interested in that. Do you want to go get a cup of coffee and talk about the book you just read instead, right? Shifting conversation, finding friends outside of the gym, getting away from needing to be the online entrepreneur who makes money off their paleo cookbook, like getting away from those mindsets, getting away from the assholes, can help.
I'm simply not tolerating it anymore in a gym, or all these comments about having to earn food or this and that and diet talk. After 42 years, I'm like, no, I don't need this anymore. And, that makes me think of the body image report that you published. I know hardly any women who eat without restrictions or without fears or without rules. Somehow this must play into this body image thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think the problem is we all are struggling because society says we're supposed to struggle. We're all struggling because we all want to be the cool kid. We all want to be the asshole. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to be assholes, but we want to be in that world where we're accepted, where we're loved, where we're validated. And the only way we know, the media tells us, our parents have told us, our friends believe, right? Our magazines tell us, the internet says, the trolls want you to understand the only way to be loved is to be thin, to be restricted, to be exercising all the time. Well, you know what? When you reject that, you have to do so with trust, and you just have to go for it. Like that's literally all there is like, and they're going to continue to, and here's the thing. So the comparison game will not help you win. There are people who are not going to believe and who aren't going to trust, and they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. And you can't compare yourself to them, because then you're still being an asshole.
To yourself mostly, yeah.
Yes, of course, because you still believe they're right. So I work in a regular office, okay? Everybody's on a diet all the time. Everybody's doing an exercise challenge. We've had office weight loss and exercise challenges. Now it just exhausts me. I'm like, you know what? Can we talk about the project we have to do? Or, hey, tell me about your kids, right? Because I just, I've had a couple days where I've gotten like table flippingly angry at lunch, where like they're talking about their 21-day sugar detox or whatever. I don't want people to feel like this is necessary for them, but that's where they are on their journey. And you know what? We're going to change as many minds as we can. We're going to make the world as safe as we can. We're going to try to get rid of as much oppression as we can. But at the end of the day, your journey is your journey. And as long as you're comparing your journey to somebody else's, you will fail. You'll go back to doing what you were doing. If you believe the assholes are still right, even if you know they're not, and you're acting like they are, then you're going to be miserable, Because I can guarantee, like somebody said to me the other day, they're like, I know, but I see all these other like fitness people who are, they're not exercise addicted and they're totally fine. And I'm like, how do you know? You see them at the gym. You don't know what they look like in real life.
And a lot of people are in denial about fitness addiction or exercise dependence. And so it's probably a good time for you to tell us about some telltale signs.
Absolutely. So essentially, exercise addiction or dependence, it looks like a regular addiction, okay? It looks like tolerance. So you need more and more to get the same high, right? You go through withdrawal when you have to stop. It starts to isolate you from your friends and your family. You start to make excuses and lie and hide, or cancel events because you have to exercise. And you're constantly needing to get that fix. If you're denied your fix of exercise, you start to feel anxious or guilty or sad or depressed. I can guarantee you there have been like trips that I've gone on in the past with my family where I've had no exercise and I was just angry the whole time and I couldn't be around my family. You compensate, so restricting your food, right? Things like that. So when you start to answer yes to all of these things, right, and there are actually tests online that you can take if you want to find out if you match up exercise. Just type in exercise dependence. There's also a great book that was written by my friend Katie Schreiber. It's called The Truth About Exercise Addiction, and my story is actually featured in there. So totally shameless plug, but also Katie's wonderful, and she writes a lot about exercise addiction for Psychology Today and Greatest and a ton of other sources. You can learn a little bit more about what this affliction is and why you might be experiencing it. But, understand exercise is a drug. It affects your brain chemicals.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're the kind of person who is maybe prone to a little bit more imbalance in your brain chemicals and exercise helps balance them, you may be setting yourself up, especially as you increase your dose. Right. And especially as you prolong that dose and don't take some time out and take those rest days, as long as you are actually continuing to commit exercise, then you may be creating that addiction or at least a tolerance and then a dependence to the point where you are unable to deal with the withdrawals. So.
Exactly. What were the most important tools for you on your journey to break free from all of those chains related to food and exercise? Tools that you want people to know about.
Sure. So for me, honestly, media literacy is the most important thing, which is understanding that what is the picture of health thing that we talked about at the very beginning, understanding that what is being shown to you is maybe more marketing than it is truth. So I work in marketing, and I have gone out and done a ton of research on marketing psychology and understanding the way that people write about and depict health comes from a place of bias and is meant to trigger you to purchase things and to continue investing in a certain look or a certain idea. And they need you to believe all of this. So really understanding marketing psychology was huge for me. And it's maybe one of the most important things that we can recognize in body image, and most people don't. But yeah, so that was a huge tool. Deleting every health and fitness app, blog, podcast, unsubscribing from the magazines. I got out of the health and fitness world. I stopped worrying about what the assholes thought of me, and I stopped worrying about the fear of missing out that I had when I got rid of them from my Twitter feed. And I just said, I don't care anymore. It's not for me. And then finding what I call discovery, finding the things that I can fill that in with. So for me, it was, I started listening to stand-up comedy and going to comedy shows. I found burlesque and pole dance. I started making friends who aren't in the fitness world. So doing all of these things that had nothing to do with health and fitness, getting out of it and discovering who I am, because I am somebody who loves comedy. I am somebody who loves dancing. I am somebody who enjoys like sitting and watching a movie with my boyfriend that has and being still on the couch and not worrying about whether or not I'm going to wake up in time for my workout tomorrow. That is who I actually am outside of what my exercise and fitness ideas used to be. So those are kind of the two big things for me, was understanding marketing psychology and discovery, which was just figuring out who the hell I am and then living it. You know?
Yeah. Also, you're currently working on a program for your clients. What is it going to be, and how are you intending to help people?
Yes. So it is called Recover, Discover, Emerge, and it's going to be an eight-week program. And essentially weeks 1 through 4 are all about recovery. So I cannot have people who actually have eating disorders in the program, you know, like just from a legal standpoint, please go see a therapist or a doctor. But so this is really more about the like post-recovery, the stuff that we're talking about today, getting rid of fat phobia, letting go of the food obsessions. What are some quick, easy wins that we can start this week just to start working toward a place where you can move from trust to belief, right? From comfortable and unsafe to uncomfortable but not unsafe. And then weeks 5 through 8 are all about discovery. Who am I? What do I want to go do? What are the steps to go try it? And what happens when I do? How does that help me fill in that hole that's left by getting rid of all this food and fitness and all the icky feelings about fat phobia? So hopefully it'll be out soon. I'm working on it.
Yeah. And I think it's high time you let everybody know where they can find out all about you and what you do.
Absolutely. So my main website is performingwoman.com. I post my blog and podcast there. My podcast is called Finding Our Hunger. And also, if you want to find out where I'm dancing or if you want to dance with me, performingwoman.com/dance. And if you just want to stalk me on social media, everything is at Performing Woman. So Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, just /performingwoman. So
I will put all the links in the show notes of this podcast episode over at lifeunrestricted.org, where you can also join my amazing online community, of which, of course, Kaila is a part of. So if you want to join us, please do so at lifeunrestricted.org/join. So I'm just about to ask my final question, but I want to say that I think it's very beautiful to see you evolve, Kaila. I've been with you for more than 2 years now, and you've sure come a long way. And I love watching you express yourself more and more freely. And looking back at this beautiful evolution, I want to say, my final question for you is, what do you like to be remembered for?
Oh boy, that is a great question. I mean, it's funny because I'm going to be 30 this year and I'm still just getting started with my life. As I mentioned, I'm looking into ways to change career paths so that instead of just making money so that I can buy burlesque costumes, I really want to make a difference. You know, intersectional feminism changed my life. And when I see the oppression of people, you know, I'm white, I'm cis, I'm hetero, you know, I'm middle class. I have had struggles, but I have not had struggles the way that some of my friends have, and people I've never met. But I finally see these struggles, and I want to be able to make a difference and not just say that like, oh, I'm the white savior who's coming in. Like, I want to create spaces for people whose voices haven't been heard. And I want them to be able to tell their stories and to be able to build audiences and to help. So even if it means, not being remembered for it, but having other people be remembered for the work that I've done, that to me is actually more important than being remembered myself, if that makes any sense.
This was an incredible conversation, Kaila. I want to thank you for your fabulous self and for taking the time to be on my show.
Absolutely. This was great. Thank you so much. And thanks for letting me share my story.
This was today's dose of badassery from Life Unrestricted. Find the show notes with links to everything we mentioned in this episode over at lifeunrestricted.org. And if this show is making you feel good, awesome. Make sure to subscribe and please let others feel good too. By leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll help make this show more visible and therefore more accessible for others. You're the best. Thanks.